Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I am Sean Butler. There's Bugsy. She's saying hi, everybody, with her tail wagging, bawling. Gob, I hope you are all happy and healthy, doing the things that you love with those that you have to do them with. Do me a favour, guys, as we've got you another transfer news, views and clues update. The summer started early. Holy, it's an interesting one today as well. One player that I'm going to mention that might be coming in, who's a player that I really like the look of, done my wife scout, and obviously I'm familiar with him from his Champions League exploits, which we'll come to in a moment. And if he comes in as a replacement for a certain outgoing player, then I'd probably be okay. Oh, camera's gone down. I'd probably be okay with it. I want to know your thoughts on the player. If you know him, if you like him, if you follow him, if you don't, if you see weaknesses, etc. There's also another name to the outgoing list, potentially, and another big club name that he might be going to for big money. And it's kind of like, at this stage, I'm thinking, these links, again, spurious some of them may be, not sure of the quality of some of them, where it started, who's going on it, you know, whether or not some of the names of the people that, you know, in seasons gone by, you've given a bit too much credibility, maybe in your like sort of naivete about their willingness to drop these links and talk about things that they probably don't have any real sources on. Sources close to the website are saying this. Okie dokie. Anyway, I'm going to bring them to your attention because we like to talk about transfer news, views and clues here, even if they don't manifest. You know, most of them don't manifest, but it's worth talking about, guys. So if you do enjoy it, then make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe and all that jazz. Guys, before we get into it though, quick word about yesterday. Look, 1-1. It was the dead rubberiest of dead rubber games. But you know what? This notion, from a professional perspective, that we've got bigger fish to fry and it's all about Thursday and so it's a non-event, it's nothing burger of a game. I get it, technically it is from the Premier League. But you know what? It was a London derby. Fans of both teams paid top money to go to that game. It's usually a belter. Yesterday it felt like no one gave two hoots. The performances from basically everybody on the Tottenham pitch, maybe absent Danzo and Matisse Tell, I thought was really good in the first half. And I thought Micky Moore did okay in the second half when he came on as well. But really, it was just lackluster and more sort of statuesque efforts. It was just, you know, in line with what you would expect. And so I'm not going to sit here and say I didn't expect it or I'm surprised or anything, because I'm not. But at the same time, the notion that we've got bigger fish to fry and bigger things to focus on, whilst that might be true as a fan base and as a football club generally, and for the 11 players that are going to play on Thursday, 8 of those players that played yesterday are not going to be playing on Thursday in all likelihood. And so to those people, you wonder why it is that they can't up themselves, because, you know, there are still those 2 or 3 positions to play for in the league, and that does create £9-10 million if you're successful at it. And games like West Ham yesterday, when they are so bad, should be games that you go and get your 3 points in to help you in the rest of the league performance, because if money's tight, then you should be able to rally your troops. And, you know, it doesn't sit well with me that the players that are not fighting for their place for Thursday because they haven't done enough all season, that they also can't even rally themselves for these sorts of games. It just doesn't, I don't like it. I can understand why even Tottenham wouldn't be the only team that are guilty of that sort of behaviour, but it stinks, you know. There's a lot of people that have paid a lot of money for that game, or to go to that game. We couldn't even watch it on UK TV, but like, it's just, to me, it's an unacceptable level of professionalism to not care. Like, and maybe that's the reason why some of those players are not fighting for their spots on the Thursday night sort of team sheet either, because ultimately, if they don't care for that, then that just, it sort of tells you what you, I don't know, it tells you a little bit more about their effort and their performances. As I say, apart from Matisse Tell, who I thought tried his hardest and worked hard and showed that he's fighting and does care, and that to me, it gives you, for me, an insight into his demeanour that is, you know, in moments where it's easy to put your feet up, if you don't, and you get down and you do some graft, then to me, on a kind of comparison basis, on a relative basis, on a scale basis, I think it should be called out and should be praised. But also, effort for me is the bare minimum. You know, when you're paid as much money as these guys are paid, you shouldn't have to like ask them to care a little bit about a game of football, because they're the luckiest people in the world, aren't they? you know. Anyway, it grinds my gears a little bit. And it's not just a Tottenham thing, it's a football thing. You can't do that if you're working in an emergency room on Christmas Eve and you're looking forward to your Christmas dinner tomorrow. You know, you can't put your feet up because someone's going to come in having had a car accident or a fight or a heart attack, and you still got to be on call, right? So, you know, most people in this world that get paid far less, work far harder, and don't get to put their feet up. I think those sorts of things should be just par for the course, you know, and it just grinds my gears. As I say, there wasn't really any outperformances apart from maybe Danzo and Tell. So that's all I want to say on that. Anyway, let's get into the transfer news, views, and clues. I'm sorry, I hope the wind's not too crackling on you guys. I haven't got my wind filter on it this morning. I didn't realise it was going to be as cold as it is. Let's start with the news that James Maddison is on the list of Manchester City targets for this summer. They're looking for a replacement for Kevin De Bruyne. I mean, you can make the argument they already have a couple in that front line already, but James Maddison, apparently, according to, well, I think the first article was for Jaces, and we know what they're capable of doing, which isn't great, but it has since been picked up by a couple of other kind of generally more respectable journalists, although again, I always consider them respectable, but sometimes I look at the stuff that gets pumped out and think, now you're just becoming, you know, clickbait worthy. I get it. Don't get me wrong. I hear it. I hear the need. But James Maddison to Manchester City for £55 million, which would turn a profit on the player. A player that, let's be honest, you know, he's a bit of an enigma at Tottenham. I don't think he works hard enough for the team. I think when he's on the ball, he can be very creative, and he is our creative powerhouse. And certainly of late in European games, he's been a difference maker. That ball from Porro that he took down, I wouldn't have given Solanke the credit to be able to do that, or Richalison, or probably anyone else in our forward line. So, you know, maybe not even Decky, to be honest. So on that basis, you know, there's absolute value there. And the idea of him going to Manchester City, I find it strange. I don't really see Manchester City looking at him and thinking that he's that next level. But that's the story. And I wanted to kind of, you know, get your vibes and gauge on whether you lot in the audience there are okay with the concept of selling him. Let's not forget, guys, that you've also got the story of Romero leaving, and that looks increasingly likely. That looks like it's all kind of, not agreed in principle, but it, like the stories that are out there suggesting that, in a nutshell, it's done in terms of player willingness, club willingness, and buying club willingness. It's just a case of how do you make it work. Now, one of those stories that came out yesterday or the day before was that Atletico Madrid are willing to part company with Conor Gallagher to make this one happen, and that Tottenham might turn their attention to bring him back. I just don't see that happening on any way, shape or form. He hasn't wanted to come to Tottenham in the past. He's Chelsea through and through. He's done well in Madrid, and he seems to be happy there. He's learning Spanish from all reports and doing quite well with the kind of acclimation process. I think it's just people are putting two and two together and trying to make a story, right? When that's fine for me, it's fine for me to talk to you about. I'm happy to do it. Bring it on. But the other story, of course, is Rodrigo Riquelme, winger for Atletico Madrid. Very talented guy, very fast, very tactile, very tricky, and someone that I don't mind the look of. But again, it brings you back to this notion of, like, do we need another winger? How many wingers do we need? Is it quality over quantity? Is he of the quality that would make it make sense? And if so, what does that mean for Sonny? What does that mean for Matisse Tell? What does that mean for Mikey Moore, etc.? I get the vibe from the community that everybody is really about Mikey Moore. They want to see Mikey Moore given a chance. And listen, I don't want to come across as someone who isn't on board the Mikey Moore story. I really am. I'm just saying that, I've said it 1,000 times, if you are good enough, then you are old enough. And on that basis, once you are considered for the first team football, it doesn't matter whether you're 17 or 27. You have to be considered on your merit. And I haven't seen that much from him. I've seen sort of glimpses and flashes of good. I've seen some mediocre and I've seen some poor. I don't think he's personally ready yet, personally. But then I don't really have a big enough sample size of data to base that on. But from what I have seen, I haven't been wowed like this guy is a generational talent, like he was built up to be by the media, by the fans, and by everybody else over the last couple of years. You know, and these things happen, right? It's not anyone's fault. It's just he's been ill as well. He's had a virus, and that sort of thing can knock you sideways. So, but yeah, Riquelme story, you know, the James Maddison story, I don't really think any of it's true. The player plus cash deals are always they're always touted. They're always like thrown out by media articles to sort of, again, make sense of how does a club that wants a player finance a player, but in reality, how often do they really happen? The answer is rarely, and that's because of the complexity of another party, a third party getting involved, the agents, the timing, the structure, the who gets what, how much they get paid, all of those things. It's difficult enough to negotiate, a two-party transfer. Adding a third in there is just crazy, but they can happen. They have happened in our experience. We're not necessarily aligned. I know there was one with Harry Winks, wasn't there, and Ollie Skip, etc. But in terms of that was with James Maddison. In terms of, do I think that there's a story there? I think the story starts and finishes with Romero going to Madrid for cash, for some sort of level of cash, and the payments of it will be interesting. But Romero is that story of him going, right? £60 million is apparently going to be, give or take, the fee that we're trying to get to, 60, 65. I think he's worth more, but I also don't mind him leaving for what it's worth. As I've said a number of times, I don't think he's as good as everyone says he is, but he's certainly worth a certain price point based on market forces. The other story, Pedro Porro to Manchester City. That story is catching some more wind. And I don't necessarily think these things are aligned with Europa League success or otherwise. Like, if we don't win the Europa League, I think there will, in all likelihood, be a hell of a lot of stories that are pushed out by maybe just journalists looking for stories, or possibly from other clubs looking to unsettle players, that will push narratives to try to take advantage of the fact that Tottenham would be at like an all-time recent low, and that some of our best players will want out. Pedro Porro, he's unique in his skill set at Tottenham. Romero, unique in his skill set at Tottenham, to be honest. But as I say, when you see people like Kevin Danso doing what they did yesterday, another really good performance from him. I think we've got a really good player in Kevin Danso. But here is the story alongside the Romero and the Maddison and the Porro leaving jive, that Tottenham are interested in signing Inter Milan German centre-back, Yves Bissouma. He's right-sided, but he can play both. He's centre-back, right-footed, big, tall, strong, fast, beast of a centre-back. I've got to be honest, I don't watch too much Serie A, right? So happy for anyone to come in and correct me on my analysis here, but what I've seen of him in the Champions League, I think he is a monster. He's 24 years old, and he's great in the air. He's sensational in the air. He's brilliant with offensive. He's a ball-playing centre-back. He loves to come out and dribble the ball like the way that Micky van der Ven does a little bit on the left-hand side. His passing is great. Plays in a really nice, polished team under Simone Inzaghi. See, I said Simone Inzaghi because I had 4 people yesterday comment and say, Sean, it's not Simeone Inzaghi. You're thinking of Diego Simeone. I wasn't, but I just assumed that someone that's the Simone thing, I don't know. I just thought it was all the same thing. But apologies for the grammar police. Simone Inzaghi has cultivated a wonderful little outfit over in Inter, and he's a beneficiary of it, a brilliant player. He doesn't slide in very often at all, in fact. If you look at his stats, which I'll put on the screen if I can get them, you'll see green bars galore in everything that you could possibly wish for relative to other centre-backs. His passing, his contribution, his distribution, his offensive work, his shot-creating actions, all that stuff, 80, 90 percentile. You almost think he's a midfielder, and he probably could be. But the only areas of those sort of stats where you look at it and go, what? Are his tackles and his clearances, which is sort of, much lower, right? But I think that comes down to a number of things. One is that he doesn't often slide tackle because he's that good with his positional sense, that good with his awareness, that he can intercept and sort of take care of business on the feet, and so that can kind of be misrepresented in a low tackle percentage. Sometimes those things aren't considered tackles; they're considered dispossessions or miscontrols by the offensive player, and so it doesn't necessarily go into his stats. And on top of that, it's part of the system that they play, and the fact that Inter Milan are a very good team, and so you're naturally not going to have to necessarily be doing too much defensive work as a defender, right? But in terms of his aerial stuff, I think he's 99th percentile for aerial threat for both offense and defensive, which is an area of vulnerability for us. I really do like Yves Bissouma from what I've seen of him. German player. He's only just broken into the German team, which is obviously showing you his sort of rise to prominence, rise to sort of rise to fame, if you like, in the footballing space, and he's valued at about 40 million quid. So if you were looking for someone to come in for a Romero replacement, and Jonathan Tah might be going to Bayern Munich by all accounts, that might not necessarily be as easy or as simple as I was hoping when I first thought about that deal. And Mark Gahey is priced out by Crystal Palace because they think that a guy with a year left on his contract, who isn't a superstar in my mind anyway, but I know you guys love him, that he's worth 70 million quid. Good luck finding a buyer for that price with the 1 year left on his deal. Then maybe you go in a different direction, and that direction may look like Jan Bissek. And like I say, he is a really talented player. But like, I don't watch Inter Milan week in, week out. I only watch them in the European stuff. So let me know if you disagree. Let me know if you can add a little bit more spice to the his takeaways, his value proposition. But I just think in a system that is Ange shaped, or a system that is slightly more considerate of defensive competencies and like the SWOT analysis of the other opposition, he looks to me to be smart, calculated, and like I say, he's not just is he blessed with good pace and good footwork, a lovely pass on him, but on top of that, he has all of the kind of specificities that you look for in a centre-back in terms of strength and the ability to read the game so that you don't have to be sliding. What did Paolo Maldini say? You know you've screwed up if you have to slide tackle or whatever it is, right? You know you've already in the wrong position. He doesn't seem to be doing too much of that from what I've seen, and that can only be a good thing. Whether he'd want to leave Inter Milan to come to Tottenham, it's a fair question. Same question I guess you'd ask about Simone Inzaghi, which a lot of you have told me in the comments. Like, explain to me why it is that he would want to come to Tottenham. And I said money. And Jan Bissek is only on, I think, 39,000 euros a week. So about 30-odd thousand pound a week, which is championship level player stuff. So, you know, would you come to Tottenham if you could treble your money? I probably would. But then I'm a Tottenham fan. So let me know, guys. Let me know. And yeah, that's basically it, guys. Not a lot else to get through. Jan Bissek coming to Tottenham. Maddison on the list of exits. And like I say, it's just a little bit outrageous that the stories start and all of a sudden we're contemplating losing 3 of our major players. How do you square that circle, guys? Do you think these rumours are just rumours, that Maddison's here regardless? Do you think Maddison would like to stay if Ange went? Would you like to stay if Ange stayed? Do you want Ange to stay? Would you take £55 million for him? I probably would. But, you know, it's one of those things where you kind of go from a story, a scenario where 4 or 5 weeks ago we were sitting around on various streams saying, yeah, we only need 4 or 5 players. Right? You need a left-sided centre-back, a number 8, a number 6, a creative forward and a striker, and we're good to go. To suddenly the rumour mills begin, and there's more names coming out of the club than there are coming in. And again, I know it's all just paper talk and speculation, but that's why we're here, to talk about what's in the talk about sections of the various websites. And to me, just you sit there and kind of go, okay, if you got 55 million for James Maddison, if you got 65 million for Romero, if you got 80 million for Pedro Porro, yeah, that's 200 million quid. You can do a lot with that. How much can you do? Well, I think you could basically rebuild your positions. There are right backs out there. I asked you on yesterday's show, guys, to find me your right backs that you like and let me know, and I'll do my digging and come back to you on it. But there's certainly a lot of 6s out there. There's certainly more noise about Johnny Cardoso today. Obviously, we had Jim from Also Spurs, who did a wonderful interview with a Spanish journalist. It was out yesterday. Go and check that video out. That guy who seems to be close to the pulse on what's going on with Cardoso said it's not as simple as Tottenham have got the first dibs. All that Betis have to do is accept the bid if we make it, but they can also accept bids from other clubs that are higher, and that the player isn't forced to choose Tottenham. If he wants to go somewhere else, he can, and obviously the club would rather him go to a place that has a higher transfer fee, because you know, that's good for the goose. So it's interesting, but I really like Johnny Cardoso. I don't know if he's like as good as we can get. He certainly isn't, but he's certainly a really good player. And I think at 21 million, he's massive value for money. And of course, he's got that American tie and Tottenham America, Daniel Levy, yada, yada, yada. We know all that stuff. I won't repeat that stuff. But so interesting. But yeah, if you were to sell all three of those, would you sell Romero, Porro, and here's a question for you to end off. Would you sell Porro, Romero, and Maddison for combined, let's say, 160 million, 170 million? Would you do it? And if so, how would you spend it? Let's play that game. Because I think with 170 million, plus if you win the Europa League, you know, Tottenham could be the busiest in the transfer window this summer, of a summer that is going to be hectic, guys. There's going to be billions spent this summer. Every team, every top team has got work to do. There's a finite amount of talent out there in the positions that a lot of these clubs need support in. I think you'll see a transfer merry-go-round, the likes of which haven't been seen. And it's going to be exciting, and I hope that Tottenham will be right in amongst it. As I say, though, it all depends on pricing, it all depends on negotiation, it all depends on who's handling the negotiations. Will it be Levy, will it be Vinny, will it be Scott Munn, Johan Lang, or Fabio Paratici, Ange Postecoglou? Who knows, guys? Who knows? Kian Sabes. So, lots to think about, guys, lots to think about. You'll be seeing this after the fact, but if you haven't seen it already, then I'm not doing it yet. I'm doing it at midday today. There is going to be, or if you're watching this later, there was a stream with Tapping Tobes and Henry Wright. We talked about various topics, micro and macro, at Tottenham Hotspur. I hope that was good fun. If you haven't seen it, go and check it out. And I'll see you on the next one, guys. But let me know your thoughts on why I asked. 170 million for those three players, yes or no? And how do you spend it? Like, subscribe, and comment. Also, let me know about Jan Bissek. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye. Come on, you Spurs.